I will talk about consumer thoughts on catch welfare. I'm Themis. Some of you have met me before, or we work together. I work on consumer research at Nofima in Tromsø, in the north of Norway. And what we did here was to kind of expand on what we've been discussing in the catch welfare platform and pick the minds of the partners in the platform, meaning internally, and some input from the meeting last year in the conference last year in Bergen. Because what we need to do is to answer the question of what is it really that consumers are thinking when they think about catch welfare. And we try to give it a fancy name, and we call them, it might change, but we call them for now catch welfare communication indicators. So to do that, we designed a consumer study to understand consumer preferences and attitudes towards the welfare of animals for seafood production. We picked a sample country to be the UK because of the connection a little bit we have in the platform, and also because it is a market that consumers are more aware, and they see they're more exposed to information, and they will not be fully surprised by the questions we ask them. We had 1,000 of them to have enough data to analyze, but also to have enough variety and variation, because we try to get a balance among age groups, various genders, region they live at, the population of the place of origin, their income, and their education. So there was an experiment in the survey. It was not just questions of what they think, because we try to assess their willingness to receive additional information. So there was an option to access supplementary details. I will show you a little bit. It was very simple, but still it's an experiment, because we want to see their inclination to seek for further information. We know that consumers care about catch welfare, but we don't know if they want to know more about it or if they want to hear a lot about it. So we gave them the option to access additional information, and then we had questions to confirm that they understood what they read. We also had psychological, social, and demographic characteristics and consumer behavior questions to explain a little bit the results. What we found was, I found the button that actually opens up my screen so I can read what I need to read. Yeah, a bit of a spoiler alert. Our communication information group here tells us to give the result as early as possible, because people do not want to wait for it at the end. So I start with a conclusion in a sense. So consumers do not know much about parameters that influence catch welfare by line and hook, and they know even less about nets. They do believe that the parameters we present to them are important. So when we ask them how they find the parameters we give them, they say it's important. But only 1/3 of them want to know more about welfare. And now I will show you some figures that exemplifies this. So first, we gave them something that I really like as a method. I mean, those of you not in consumer research might not care much about this, but I think it makes very much sense to ask people first, what do they have in their mind? What is the top of their mind? Before we go into this long service and we tell them what is important, and they start rating in scales and everything. So the first thing they were asked was to imagine the catch of a fish using line and hook. And what are the fish welfare aspects that first come to their mind when they think of this catch method? This figure is quite busy, occupied, or there is a lot of information on it. But basically the frequency is how many people wrote which of these categories, how many times these categories were referred to. So the highest bar on the left is damage to fish, pain, injury, etc. These abstract terms that we all think when we think of welfare. But the sad news, or something we can work on in the future, is that The second bar is none or that they don't know. Other aspects is the third bar, and that was very, very rarely things refer to maybe only once. So there is quite a colorful category there that we could pick maybe one or two, something that we haven't thought of before if we go deeper into the analysis. And then we go to all the smaller bars that are like cruelty, hook type, easy to remove, catch and release, target fishing method, etc., etc. I can share the slides later on if you after this conference so that you can look into it in further detail. But the main take-home message from this figure is basically that consumers think of the damage to the fish as pain and injury, so abstract terms, or none, or they don't know. And then come many small other factors that are probably few consumers that are specifically interested in the topic. Okay, then we ask them the same question, but about nets. So imagine the catch of fish using nets. What are the fish welfare aspects that first come to your mind when you think of this catch method? And I must explain here that we used line and hook and nets as two very simple categories or umbrella terms, because we know that consumers, or at least most of consumers, do not particularly have awareness or knowledge about the several types of fishing methods within those two. Anyhow, here comes the answers that people had on top of their mind when it comes to catch of fish using nets. The first bar was none, I don't know. And actually, if I skip to the previous one, you see that none, I don't know, was around 250, 240 times. And here we have 200, 240 times, so more or less same level. But we don't have pain and injury as we had before. So they start by none or I don't know. And then the large category of all the small frequencies, like the topics that were referred to 1 or 2 times. And only in third place, we have damage to fish, pain, injury, etc. And then we go to bycatch, indiscriminate catches, distress, discomfort, overfishing, and then fish size and age, size of net, holes in the nets, cruelty, etc. And then we drop down to maybe 10 times out of 1,000. That is, I have to remind you that these numbers are not very impressive if you think that we asked 1,000 consumers. So this was the open-ended questions when we started the survey, and then we used existing welfare indicators and we translated them or picked those that make sense to a consumer that's not a scientist or a fishing professional. So we generated this catch welfare communication indicators. So they're not the actual indicators that we use in experiments with fish. They're indicators that are categorized to be communicated. So they're simplified, developed with a consumer vocabulary in mind. And what we found here is that on a scale from 1 to 7, classic questionnaire scale, with a middle point being at 4, meaning 4 meaning neither unimportant nor important, 1 means not important, and 7 means very important. We see that all of the indicators, communication indicators that we listed for the consumers were considered important. And that, again, this is why we start by asking the open-ended questions, because we know once we give them something, they think it's quite important. But that's good news in a sense, because when we see the categories, it's like high proportion of unwanted catch, time from capture to slaughter, open wounds, broken back, asphyxiation from air exposure, popped eyes, stress levels, internal muscle injury, damaged fins, exhaustion, crowding pressure, and scale loss. So familiar terms to most of us here, but also familiar terms or terms that consumers can understand. At the same time, they're a little bit shocking if they've never thought about this before. Yet, the importance levels are quite positive for all of them. we then showed them the little experiment, or like they didn't know it's experiment. It was a simple question for them actually. Would you like to receive more information about fish and crustacean welfare during catch and handling? And if you think about it, we just made them think twice about these indicators. So then we gave them a list of indicators that they evaluated it. So we already gave them some information. They're already more informed than they usually are on a normal day. And then we asked them if they want to hear more. A third of them wanted to read or hear more about welfare. And when they clicked yes, they got this sentence that is actually taken by a text written by Mike, I think. Good catch welfare practices are capture and handling methods that minimize the physical damage to and stress on any retained fish until they're either slaughtered or released. So that is the extra information they got. And then they evaluated this information. That's not a personal judgment to you, Mike, but it's good news. They mostly agreed that they understood this message, they liked the message, it is a relevant message, it is credible, it is accurate, it is usable, it is reliable, honest, sufficient, and comprehensive. This is very good news because it is just one sentence, one definition that we know is simple enough and detailed enough to do the job. And it came after all the indicators that I showed you before. So that shows quite a positive image of that consumers that start by saying like, I don't really know what is the damage or what indicators are relevant. Then they evaluate some indicators as important. Then some of them want to get more information and they still see the information as generally positive. I mean, the reaction to this information is generally positive. So what's next is who should be responsible for the quality of information related to fish welfare. Here we have a similar picture. We see small differences. This is not even tested because in my mind, these are basically similar values. We can test them and find significances, statistical significance, but the main point here is that more or less all relevant actors are responsible for the quality of information, with some peaks there about fisheries organizations, fishermen, and independent controlling agents. But of course, just to complete the list, we asked them if the government should be responsible, Food Safety Authority, what did I miss? Retailers, consumer organizations, NGOs, and labeling organizations. We didn't see any of these really differentiating strongly from the others, but I'm sure if we continue the analysis and we start segmenting consumers in groups and understanding them a little bit better, we might find different preferences from different sources of information. And the next one was that this type of information related to fish welfare should be presented as a label, or in a blog, or in social media, or at schools, on TV, in restaurants, from the caterer, as posters at the supermarket, as flyers at the supermarket, or by fishmongers. Here we see some peaks, again, nothing extreme, but I think the label and by fishmongers is sticking out as obvious candidates if we want to take this in the practice further on. The blog is there, it's not really bad, not good. And the rest are generally okay, acceptable, let's say, at an acceptable level. So now what? What does this, this is my last slide. What does this information give us to compare to what we knew before? It's basically that we could say that we have developed catch welfare communication indicators that work. There was not one that we need to remove because it's not considered important, for example. And we also have some ideas, for example, that food safety authorities and fisheries organizations and fishermen can collaborate with independent controlling agents and labeling organizations. And together they can develop communication material that can become a label, but also information that can be given in person by fishmongers. Of course, we need to look into the data a little bit deeper, and we always need more data and more research, because this is an area that keeps changing and a market that keeps changing, and it's changing towards our direction, in the good direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Themis. That was, as always, that was fascinating, and a really useful insight. I mean, particularly how we communicate the catch welfare message. So, do we have a quick question from the audience?
It's a very practical question.
Very good.
And also compliments. This is really interesting, Themis. Would it be able to receive the study with full details?
Yes, I'm actually working on, or should be working on, a paper on this. So it will be very available soon.
Yes. You know, always.
And we will. Sorry?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say we're presenting only very new, relevant things. So not published yet, but it will be.
Yeah, and it will be announced and uploaded in our catch welfare platform database.
Slack environment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Just one little comment. I actually see the fact that a third of the population wants to know more about catch welfare. I actually see that as a good thing. I mean, it'd be nice if it was more, but it's and I think we should push the blog more. They're obviously not listening to our blog enough. If they're not that interested in it, they should be listening more. So
no, I totally agree that 1/3, after also being exposed to all these previous questions, 1/3 wanting to read more, it's a very good sign. Yes.
Yeah. No, but excellent work, Themis. I really look forward to seeing the paper. Get to work on it.
Yeah.